The night sky was humanity's first and greatest teacher. Long before the invention of the telescope, cultures across the globe mastered the cosmos with astonishing accuracy. They built monuments locked to the sun and stars, predicted eclipses centuries in advance, and navigated vast oceans using nothing but celestial memory. This journey will reveal the hidden genius behind these ancient astronomical practices, giving you a profound new appreciation for human ingenuity. How did a Neolithic society construct a stone computer for tracking the moon? What secret knowledge was encoded in a mysterious bronze device salvaged from a shipwreck? By the end, you will see the stars not as distant lights, but as the clockwork that guided our ancestors' greatest achievements. What forgotten story written in the stars are you most curious to uncover? Their precision began with a simple, undeniable truth. The sky was not just a spectacle, it was the ultimate survival manual. Every sunrise, every moon phase, every star's return held the key to life or death. For a farmer in Mesopotamia 6,000 years ago, knowing exactly when the Nile would flood was not an academic exercise. It was the difference between a bountiful harvest and starvation. They watched the rising of the star Sirius, which heralded the annual inundation, and their entire calendar, their society, was built around this celestial alarm clock. This was astronomy as agriculture, a science of survival written in the constellations, but the need went beyond the field. For the Polynesian voyagers navigating the vast Pacific, the sky was their only map. They memorized the paths of specific stars, learning how they rose and set over particular islands. They watched the patterns of ocean swells reflected by starlight and felt the subtle shifts in the wind. Their celestial knowledge was so precise they could sail for weeks across open water, finding specks of land with a confidence that seems almost supernatural to us today. This was astronomy as exploration, a three-dimensional highway painted across the night. Yet their observations were never purely practical. The movements of the heavens were deeply woven into the spiritual fabric of their world. A solar eclipse was not merely the moon blocking the sun. It was a dragon swallowing the sun god, a moment of cosmic terror that required rituals to restore balance. The precise alignment of a temple doorway with the sunrise on the summer solstice was an act of communion, a way to capture the power of the gods at its peak moment. Their calendars governed not just planting but sacred festivals, coronations, and prophecies. This profound belief that the gods spoke through the stars is what drove them to such obsessive accuracy. They were not just predicting seasons, they were deciphering divine messages. This intricate blend of survival, exploration, and sacred duty created the foundation for the astonishing precision we are about to uncover. This drive to translate the sky into stone reached its breathtaking climax on the windswept plains of southern England. Stonehenge stands not as a random circle of rocks, but as a meticulously engineered celestial observatory, a Neolithic computer built from sarsen and bluestone. Its construction was a multi-generational project, beginning over 5,000 years ago with a simple circular ditch and the mysterious Aubrey holes, a ring of 56 pits just inside the bank. For centuries, this was the site's only form. Then, around 2500 BC, the monument we recognize today began to rise. Enormous sarsen stones, some weighing over 25 tons, were dragged from quarries nearly 20 miles away. These were shaped and erected into the iconic outer circle and inner horseshoe, capped with massive lintels locked together with complex joints. This was architecture on a staggering scale, a statement of profound purpose. That purpose is written in light and shadow. At dawn on the summer solstice, if you stand at the center of the circle, you witness a spectacle engineered into the very bones of the monument. The sun rises directly over the heel stone, a solitary pillar outside the main ring, and its rays shoot through the heart of the structure. This alignment is too precise to be an accident. It marks the longest day, a turning point in the year vital for agriculture and ceremony. But Stonehenge's genius extends far beyond this single sunrise. Those 56 Aubrey holes, dug centuries before the giant stones arrived, may hold an even more sophisticated secret. Archaeoastronomers propose they were used as a primitive calculating device to predict lunar eclipses. By moving markers around this circle of pits, tracking the complex cycles of the moon, the builders could anticipate when the moon would turn a bloody red in the Earth's shadow. This 56-year cycle gave them power over a terrifying celestial event, transforming fear into foresight. Then there are the blue stones, the smaller, distinctive stones that form an inner circle. Their origin is a story written in stone. Geochemical analysis reveals they were hauled all the way from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey of over 150 miles across rugged terrain. Why undertake such an epic, back-breaking task? Some theories suggest these stones were believed to hold healing properties brought by pilgrims. Others propose the journey itself was a sacred act, an ancestral pathway frozen in architecture. Perhaps the blue stones were chosen because they came from a place already sacred, a place connected to the ancestors or the spirit of the land. Their presence ties the monument not just to the sky above, but to the earth far below, creating a sacred geography that connected heaven, earth, and human lineage. To stand at Stonehenge is to stand inside a three-dimensional calendar, an eclipse predictor, and a map of ancestral memory, all carved from the living rock by people who saw the cosmos as something they could not just watch but touch. While Stonehenge captured the sun and moon on the horizon, another civilization turned its gaze directly upward, mapping the eternal stars onto the very fabric of their kingdom. The pyramids of Egypt are not just tombs, they are perfect mirrors of the cosmos, built with a precision that still defies easy explanation. The Great Pyramid of Giza, constructed for the pharaoh Khufu around 2500 BC, is the ultimate testament to this celestial obsession. Its most basic geometry reveals a staggering feat of engineering. The four sides of the pyramid are aligned almost perfectly to the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, with an error of less than 1/15 of a single degree. To achieve this, the ancient builders likely used the circumpolar stars, those that never set, tracing their circular paths around the celestial pole to find true north. This was not for architectural vanity. It was a sacred orientation, anchoring the pharaoh's eternal house to the unchanging axis of the universe. But the pyramid's connection to the sky runs far deeper than its foundation. Within the massive stone structure are narrow, claustrophobic passages known as air shafts, extending from the inner chambers to the outer faces. For a long time, their purpose was a mystery, thought to be merely for ventilation. The truth is far more profound. The shafts emanating from the king's chamber are precisely angled, not for air but for starlight. One shaft points directly north, targeting the star Thuban in the constellation Draco. In Khufu's time, Thuban was the pole star, the unmoving heart of the northern sky around which all other stars appeared to rotate. The southern shaft from the same chamber points toward the center of Orion's belt. In Egyptian mythology, Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, rebirth, and the underworld. This alignment was a cosmic roadmap. The prevailing belief was that when the pharaoh died, his soul or his ba would ascend through these stone channels. It would travel north to join the eternal, unchanging circumpolar stars, the imperishable ones, to live forever in an undying realm. Or it would journey south to unite with Osiris in Orion, to be reborn just as the god was. The pyramid was a launch pad for a celestial journey, a machine built to catapult the divine king into the heavens. This astronomical precision served the most profound human desire of all, to conquer death itself by aligning with the perpetual cycles of the stars. The stones were placed so the pharaoh would never be lost, forever guided by the lights he had studied so meticulously in life. Yet the pyramids were only one part of a much larger celestial system. For daily life and the very rhythm of their civilization, the ancient Egyptians looked not just to the unmoving pole star, but to a brilliant, wandering beacon that returned with life-giving certainty. They developed one of history's first solar calendars, a year of 365 days divided into 12 months of 30 days each, plus 5 extra festival days. This was a monumental intellectual leap, a deliberate move away from lunar cycles to a system tied to the sun. But this calendar had a subtle, creeping flaw. The true solar year is about 1/4 of a day longer than 365 days. So, their civil calendar slowly drifted against the actual seasons, losing about 1 day every 4 years. Imagine a calendar that said it was spring, but outside the harvest was already being gathered. This drift created a fascinating problem. Their solution was written in the pre-dawn sky. They kept their agricultural and religious life perfectly synchronized by watching for the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, which they called Soptit. The heliacal rising is that magical moment when a star, after being hidden by the sun's glare for months, first becomes visible again in the eastern sky just moments before sunrise. It appears as a faint, shimmering pinprick of light low on the horizon, a herald in the growing dawn. For the Egyptians, this single celestial event was the most important day of the year. The reappearance of Sirius, always without fail, coincided with the annual inundation of the Nile River. Just as that star's light broke over the horizon, the river would begin to swell, flooding its banks and depositing the rich, black silt that fertilized their fields. This was not a loose correlation, it was a precise, predictable cosmic trigger. Their entire society operated on this Sothic cycle. The civil calendar and the Sirius-based agricultural year would realign only once every 1,460 years, a period they understood as a great year. This meant their priests and astronomers were constantly cross-referencing two calendars, using the unwavering star to correct the drifting human one. Sirius was more than a marker, it was a divine timekeeper. The goddess Soptit was depicted as a woman with a star on her head, and her return was celebrated with festivals and offerings, for she brought not just water but life, order, and the defeat of chaos. In this practice, we see astronomy refined to its most elegant and essential form, a culture setting its watch by the clockwork of the universe, trusting a distant sun's companion star to tell them when to plant, when to celebrate, and when to expect the bounty of their world to renew itself once more. While the Egyptians charted the sun and stars for life and afterlife, another civilization was laying the very foundations of astronomy as a predictive mathematical science. In the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Babylonians became history's most obsessive celestial accountants. For over 1,000 years, from roughly the 8th to the 1st century BC, their scribes meticulously recorded the nightly movements of the heavens onto thousands of clay tablets, using a wedge-shaped script called cuneiform. These were not poetic myths or religious hymns, though they held deep divinatory purpose. They were raw data logs, the astronomical equivalent of a modern scientist's lab notebook. Night after night, they noted the positions of planets, the precise timing of moon rises, the dates when specific stars first appeared at dawn, and every observed eclipse. They compiled this information over centuries, creating a vast celestial archive that spanned generations. This relentless data collection was driven by a core belief that the gods communicated their will through omens in the sky. A lunar eclipse might foretell the death of a king. The appearance of Mars in a certain constellation could signal war. To anticipate these events was to gain power, to prepare, to potentially even avert disaster through the correct rituals. This urgent need to decode divine messages pushed their observations into the realm of high mathematics. From their mountains of data, they began to detect patterns too subtle for casual observation. Their greatest achievement was unraveling the cycles of the moon, leading to the discovery of the Saros cycle. they realized that a nearly identical eclipse, lunar or solar, will repeat itself every 6,585 and 1/3 days, which is about 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. This meant that if you witnessed a total solar eclipse, you could predict with remarkable accuracy when and where a very similar one would occur nearly 2 decades later. This was a monumental leap. It transformed eclipses from terrifying, random acts of the gods into calculable, predictable celestial mechanics. To make these calculations, they developed a sophisticated arithmetic system based on the number 60, a sexagesimal system whose legacy is all around us. Why 60? It is a highly divisible number, making fractions easy to work with. From this, they divided the circle into 360 degrees, each degree into 60 minutes, each minute into 60 seconds. Every time you check a compass bearing or set coordinates on a map, you are using a Babylonian innovation over 2,000 years old. Their work marked the pivotal moment when astronomy began its shift from pure, awe-inspired observation to a discipline of calculated prediction. They looked at the chaos of the night sky and saw, hidden within it, an elegant, repeating order that could be captured not just in stone, but in numbers on a clay tablet. But could such precise celestial knowledge be portable? A discovery in a German forest suggests the answer is a resounding yes. In 1999, treasure hunters using metal detectors unearthed a strange, corroded bronze disc on a hill called the Mittelberg. This object, now known as the Nebra Sky Disc, is dated to around 1600 BCE, making it the oldest known concrete depiction of the cosmos in the entire world. It is a stunning artifact about the size of a dinner plate with a deep blue-green patina shimmering with gold. At first glance, the gold inlays seem random, but they form a deliberate map. A large circle and a crescent represent the sun and the moon. A cluster of 7 small dots almost certainly depicts the Pleiades star cluster, a group of stars that has held immense cultural significance across countless ancient societies. Scattered around them are other stars, creating a snapshot of the night sky, but the disk's true genius lies in its edges. 2 golden arcs were later added on opposite sides. These are not decorative, they are functional. Each arc spans exactly 82 degrees, a measurement that matches the angle between the sunrise points on the horizon at the summer and winter solstices at that specific latitude. These are horizon arcs. If you held the disk flat and aligned one arc with the sunset on the longest day, the other would mark the sunset on the shortest day. This simple, elegant tool turned an abstract concept into a handheld instrument. The purpose of the Nebra Sky Disc sparks intense debate. Was it a practical, Bronze Age calculator for farmers and priests to track the seasons and calibrate their lunar calendar with the solar year? Or was it a powerful religious symbol, a sacred object that embodied the gods of the sky, used in rituals to assert the authority of a chieftain or shaman who could read the heavens? The most compelling answer is that it was both. The distinction between science and spirituality did not exist for these people. Understanding the sky's mechanics was a form of communion with the divine. The disk's final modification adds to the mystery, a 3rd arc at the bottom, often interpreted as a solar boat, a mythological vessel that carried the sun across the sky or through the underworld at night. This single object encapsulates the entire journey of ancient astronomy, a beautiful fusion of precise observation, practical application, and profound myth. Its very existence, buried on a hilltop 3,600 years ago, rewrites our understanding of prehistoric Europe. It proves that sophisticated cosmic knowledge was not confined to the Mediterranean or the Middle East, but was being codified in metal and gold in the heart of the continent, held in the hands of people who saw the universe as something they could carry with them. Far to the west, across the Atlantic, another civilization was building a universe of time so intricate it still echoes in our modern anxieties. The Maya of Mesoamerica did not merely observe the sky, They lived within a cosmos of interlocking, sacred cycles where astronomy was the language of destiny itself. Their most feared and revered celestial body was not the sun or moon, but the brilliant planet Venus, which they knew as Chaco, the great star. To the Maya, Venus was a deity of war and sudden change, its appearances and disappearances dictating the rhythm of conflict and royal power. Their astronomers, working from observatories like the Caracol at Chichen Itza, tracked its complex motions with breathtaking accuracy. They calculated Venus's synodic period, the time it takes to return to the same position relative to the Sun and Earth, as 584 days. This precision was recorded in the Dresden Codex, a bark paper book filled with tables that could predict Venus's position for centuries into the future. This knowledge was not academic, it was a military and political tool. The first appearance of Venus as the morning star after a period of invisibility was considered an extremely dangerous and potent time. Kings would schedule military campaigns to begin on this date, believing the star's wrath would empower their spears. Conversely, they would avoid coronations or major treaties during its hostile phases, waiting for a more auspicious celestial alignment. The sky was a cosmic chessboard, and Venus was the most powerful piece. This obsession with cycles extended to their monumental conception of time, the long count calendar. While they had a solar year for agriculture and a sacred calendar for ritual, the long count was their master chronology, a linear count of days from a mythical starting point they believed was in August of the year 3114 BC. It was composed of nested cycles like gears in a cosmic clock, counting days, 20-day months, 360-day years, and periods of nearly 400 years called backtons. This system allowed them to plot history and prophecy on a scale of millennia. It was built on a profound and haunting belief that the universe was not eternal but cyclical and destructible. They believed previous worlds or suns had been created and then annihilated. Their own era was just one in this sequence, and the completion of a major cycle, like 13 backtons, was a moment of perilous renewal, a time when the world could be transformed. This is the origin of the so-called 2012 phenomenon, a modern misinterpretation of a calendar cycle and that sparked global fascination with their timekeeping. For the Maya, it was not about an end but a turning, a moment when the celestial machinery required ritual realignment with the human world. They engineered their very landscape to mirror this celestial order. At Chichen Itza, the Pyramid of El Castillo is a stone testament to this harmony. Its architecture is a mathematical embodiment of their calendar. The 4 stairways each have 91 steps, which, combined with the shared platform at the top, totals 365, one for each day of the solar year. But its most famous feature is a fleeting masterpiece of light and shadow. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, as the sun sets, the stepped corners of the pyramid cast a series of triangular shadows onto the northern balustrade. These shadows connect to stone serpent heads at the base, creating the undulating illusion of a giant feathered serpent, Kukulkan, slithering down from the heavens to earth. This is not a happy accident of geometry. It is a precisely calculated solar effect, a moment of communion engineered centuries in advance. The serpent was a symbol of rebirth and divine connection, and its descent marked the moment of balance between light and dark, a time for planting and ceremony. In this single annual event, we see the full culmination of Maya genius, their precise astronomy, their sacred mythology, and their monumental architecture fused into one breathtaking spectacle, proving they didn't just chart time, they choreographed the dance of the cosmos itself. High in the arid desert of the American Southwest, another culture was etching celestial time directly into the living rock. Chaco Canyon, a vast ceremonial center for the ancestral Puebloan people between the 9th and 12th centuries, holds a secret atop a towering sandstone formation called Fajada Butte. To reach it requires a steep climb, a journey that ends at a secluded ledge where three massive, tilted stone slabs lean against the cliff face. Behind them, carved into the rock wall, are two spirals, a large one and a small one known as petroglyphs. For most of the year, this site is quiet, a collection of stones and ancient art. But on specific days, it comes alive with a performance of light and shadow engineered by the sun itself. As the sun climbs, narrow slivers of light slip between the cracks of the three giant slabs. These beams converge not into a soft pool of light, but into a sharp, brilliant dagger. This sun dagger, as it is called, moves with the sun's arc. On the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the dagger of light pierces directly through the center of the larger spiral. It is a moment of perfect alignment, a stone calendar marking the sun's peak power. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, a separate, smaller dagger of light appears, perfectly bisecting the smaller spiral. The precision is breathtaking. Some researchers even suggest the patterns could track the more complex 18.6-year cycle of the lunar standstill, the moon's most extreme northerly and southerly rising points on the horizon. This would mean the site was a dual observatory, capturing both the sun's annual rhythm and the moon's far slower dance. The discovery in the late 1970s sparked immediate debate. Was this a meticulously planned celestial clock or a stunning coincidence of nature? The three slabs are indeed part of a natural rockfall, yet their positioning is so specific and the resulting light patterns so perfectly aligned with the petroglyphs and solar events that many archaeologists and archaeoastronomers argue for intentional modification. The ancestral pueblones may have subtly shifted the slabs, or chosen this exact spot to carve the spirals precisely because the natural rock formation created this effect. This is indigenous precision engineering of the most elegant kind, not building upward like a pyramid, but working with the existing landscape to reveal the cosmos. It demonstrates a profound intimacy with this place, knowing how the light would fall on this cliff face on this specific day, and marking that moment for their community. The sun dagger was more than a calendar, it was a sacred intersection. The spiral is a powerful symbol found throughout the Southwest, often representing migration, emergence, or the path of life. To have the sun's light physically travel across this symbol, marking the pivotal turns of the year, would have been a profound act of communion. It connected the cycles of the sky, the spirit of the land, and the rituals of the people in one silent, luminous event. The debate over intentionality may never be fully settled, but the result stands undeniable. At Chaco Canyon, for a few moments each year, the sun still writes its story on the stone, just as it did 1,000 years ago for those who knew how to read the light. But a celestial observation could also be a dangerous political act. In ancient China, astronomy was not a public science but a closely guarded state secret, a direct line of communication between the heavens and the emperor's throne. For over 2,000 years, imperial astronomers maintained an unbroken chain of observations, creating the longest continuous celestial record in human history. Their mandate was clear: to watch for any irregularity, any deviation from the perfect harmony of the cosmos, because such an event was a direct message or omen concerning the emperor's virtue and the stability of his rule. A comet, which they called a broom star, was seen as a celestial sweeper, clearing away corruption and often foretelling the death of a ruler or a great upheaval. They recorded every appearance of Halley's comet with meticulous detail from at least 240 BC onward, each sighting noted as a moment of imperial concern. More startling were their records of guest stars, mysterious new points of light that appeared where none had been before, shone with incredible brilliance for months and then faded away. We now know these were supernovae, the catastrophic explosions of dying stars. The most famous, observed in 1054 C, was so bright it was visible in broad daylight for 23 days. Chinese astronomers mapped its position near the star Zeta Tauri, a record so precise that modern astronomers identified its remnant, the Crab Nebula, by matching those ancient coordinates. They even documented sunspots, dark blemishes on the face of the sun, calling them crows within the sun, and correctly interpreting them as solar phenomena rather than atmospheric effects. This immense archive was more than just data collection. It was a high-stakes act of interpretation. A solar eclipse was a dire warning that the emperor had lost the mandate of heaven, and his court astronomers were under immense pressure to prove they had predicted it, demonstrating the emperor's foresight and connection to the cosmic order. If they failed, it could be seen as a failure of his reign. This pressure to understand and predict fueled incredible innovation. One of its greatest minds was Zhang Heng, a scholar of the Han dynasty in the 2nd century CE. He argued correctly that the moon did not emit its own light but reflected the sun's, and he proposed a model of the heavens that was both poetic and precise. His most famous invention, however, was an earth-shaking one, the world's first seismoscope. This beautiful bronze vessel, adorned with 8 dragons facing the cardinal directions, each holding a bronze ball in its mouth, stood ready. Below each dragon sat a waiting bronze toad with its mouth open. When a distant earthquake sent tremors through the earth, a precise internal mechanism would trigger just one dragon to release its ball, which would clang into the toad's mouth below, indicating the direction of the quake hundreds of miles away. This device, born from the same empire that watched the stars for omens, revealed a profound truth. The Chinese imperial astronomers understood that the cosmos spoke in many languages through the silent drift of planets, the sudden violence of exploding stars, and the tremors deep within the Earth itself, all messages to be decoded by those who knew how to listen. This line of communication between sky and state, however, was not unique to the East. At the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, a shipwreck held a secret that would shatter our understanding of ancient technological sophistication. In the year 1900, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon the remains of a Roman-era cargo ship, its hull filled with statues, coins, and pottery. Among the corroded artifacts was a lump of greenish bronze about the size of a large book, so encrusted and decayed it seemed like a piece of useless scrap. For decades, it sat in a museum drawer in Athens, an unremarkable curiosity. Then, researchers began to look closer. X-rays and later, advanced three-dimensional computed tomography scans peeled back the layers of time and corrosion. What they revealed was nothing short of miraculous. Inside that lump were the remains of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, precisely cut and mounted within a wooden frame. Inscriptions, tiny Greek letters etched onto the plates, served as a user's manual. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, an ancient Greek analog computer dating to around the 2nd century BC. It was not a tool for navigation or a simple calendar. It was a portable, hand-cranked simulation of the cosmos. By turning a handle on the side, a series of differential gears, a technology not seen again until the 19th century, would move intricate dials and pointers on at least 7 different faces. One dial tracked the Metonic cycle, a 19-year period that synchronizes solar years and lunar months. Another displayed the Saros cycle for predicting eclipses. Yet another followed the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games, including the Olympic Games. Pointers showed the ever-changing positions of the 5 known planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, across the zodiac, while a beautiful, rotating silver and black ball illustrated the phases of the moon. This single device could answer complex astronomical questions. When will the next full moon occur? Will there be an eclipse next month, and will it be visible from Corinth? What is the position of Venus tonight? You would simply turn the crank to the desired date, and the machine, through its intricate brass guts, would calculate and display the answer. The implications are staggering. It proves that the ancient Greeks, centuries before the fall of Rome, had not only grasped the complex mathematics of celestial cycles, but had also mastered the mechanical engineering required to physically model them. This was not just theory scribbled on papyrus, it was applied science of the highest order. The Antikythera Mechanism forces us to completely rewrite a chapter of history. It suggests a lost tradition of high-precision gearwork, a technological path that, for reasons lost to time, was abandoned and forgotten for over a millennium. It stands as a haunting reminder that the light of knowledge in the ancient world may have burned brighter and in more astonishing ways than we ever dared to imagine. Yet the Antikythera Mechanism was not born in a vacuum of pure engineering. It was the physical offspring of a profound and daring intellectual revolution, a centuries-long quest by Greek philosophers to not just track the heavens, but to understand their true architecture. Their models moved beyond myth and into the realm of cosmic mechanics, creating theories that would shape human thought for nearly 2 millennia. The dominant view, championed by Aristotle in the 4th century BCE and later perfected by Claudius Ptolemy in the 2nd century CE, placed Earth firmly at the center of the universe. This geocentric model was elegant and intuitive. It matched everyday experience. The ground felt solid and unmoving while the sun, moon, and stars clearly revolved around us. But it faced one glaring problem: the planets. The word planet comes from the Greek for wanderer, and these points of light did not behave. They would move steadily eastward against the backdrop of stars, then suddenly slow, stop, and loop backwards in a westward arc, a motion called retrograde, before resuming their original path. This was a cosmic scandal. If everything moved in perfect circles around Earth, how could this happen? Ptolemy's genius and the model's enduring power lay in a clever mathematical fix: the epicycle. Imagine a planet not simply orbiting Earth, but instead attached to a smaller, invisible wheel, an epicycle. This smaller wheel's center, meanwhile, traveled along a larger circular path around Earth called the deferent. As the planet moved on its little epicycle while the epicycle's center moved on the big deferent, the combined motion, when viewed from Earth, created that puzzling loop, the retrograde path. It was a brilliant piece of mathematical gymnastics, a cosmic clockwork of circles upon circles that could predict planetary positions with remarkable accuracy for its time. This system, detailed in Ptolemy's monumental work, the Almagest, became the official cosmology of the Western and Islamic worlds for over 1400 years. It was a universe of perfect, crystalline spheres, complex but orderly, with Earth sitting in privileged stillness at its heart. But another Greek thinker had envisioned a far simpler and far more radical truth. Centuries before Ptolemy, in the 3rd century BCE, a mathematician and astronomer named Aristarchus of Samos looked at the same sky and asked a revolutionary question. What if the apparent motion of the heavens was an illusion caused by our own motion? He proposed a heliocentric model, placing the Sun, not Earth, at the center of the known universe. In his view, Earth was just another planet, spinning on its axis once a day and revolving around the Sun once a year. This single, elegant shift instantly explained the baffling retrograde motion of planets like Mars and Jupiter. Retrograde was not a real loop but a perspective effect. Imagine you are in a car on a highway, passing a slower car in the next lane. From your viewpoint, that slower car appears to move backward against the distant landscape, even though it is moving forward. In Aristarchus's model, Earth is the faster car, orbiting the Sun more quickly than Mars. When we catch up to and pass Mars in our orbit, the red planet appears to drift backwards against the distant stars. No complex epicycles were needed. The illusion was created by our own motion. This was a staggering conceptual leap, a flash of insight that would not be fully embraced until Copernicus rediscovered it nearly 1800 years later. So why did this simpler, more correct idea fade into obscurity while Ptolemy's complex system endured? The answers are both scientific and cultural. Aristarchus lacked the precise observational data to prove his theory definitively. Critics raised what seemed like valid objections. If Earth was spinning so rapidly, why weren't we flung off? Why didn't a constant howling wind blow from the east? And if Earth orbited the Sun, why didn't the positions of the fixed stars shift slightly over the year, an effect called stellar parallax? Aristarchus correctly argued the stars were simply too unimaginably far away for this shift to be detectable with ancient instruments, a truth that would not be confirmed until the 19th century. Culturally, the geocentric model fit perfectly with philosophical and religious ideas of human centrality in creation. Earth's stillness felt right. Aristarchus's vision of a moving, insignificant Earth in a vast, sun-centered void was too unsettling, too disruptive to the established order. Yet his lonely hypothesis stands as a testament to the incredible depth and diversity of ancient Greek thought. In the span of a few centuries, they produced both the intricate, Earth-centric clockwork of Ptolemy, embodied in tools like the Antikythera Mechanism, and the dazzling, sun-centered intuition of Aristarchus. They dared to build models of the entire cosmos, setting the stage for every astronomical debate that would follow, a conversation between the universe as it feels and the universe as it truly is. Aristarchus dreamed of a moving Earth, but for another culture, motion was not a theory, it was a daily, perilous reality. While philosophers debated models, Polynesian wayfinders were living them, sailing across 10,000 miles of open ocean using nothing but memory, wind, and starlight. Their vessel was the double-hulled canoe, a masterpiece of maritime engineering lashed together with coconut fiber, carrying families, plants, and animals toward an invisible horizon. They had no compasses, no sextants, no charts. Their only instruments were their own senses, trained from childhood to perceive a world of subtle celestial and oceanic cues. This was not astronomy for prophecy or worship, but for pure, breathtaking navigation, a science of survival written in the waves and the sky. At the heart of their system was the star compass, a mental map of the heavens divided into 32 directional houses. A master navigator, or PWO, did not simply know the North Star. He knew that the star Arcturus rose in the house called Hocker, and that the Southern Cross set in the house called Wiener. He had memorized the exact point on the horizon where hundreds of stars both rose and set, creating a fixed grid across the dome of the night. As the Earth turned and stars appeared to move, he could always pinpoint his direction. If his destination lay in the Hocker sector, he would keep the star associated with that house at a constant angle off the bow of his canoe. When that star eventually set, he would immediately switch to another star rising in the same house, maintaining his course through the endless celestial relay race. But the stars were only one part of the story. The sun by day and the ocean itself provided constant guidance. Navigators learned to read the deep, rolling swells, the kapu, that were generated by distant weather systems and reflected off unseen islands. A seasoned wayfinder could lie in the hull, feeling the canoe's motion, and identify the dominant swell pattern. He could detect a subtle bounce or bend in these swells, a refraction that hinted at a landmass still over 100 miles away, long before it broke the horizon. The sky above the water also spoke. Certain cloud formations, like a stationary, dark-bottomed cloud over a specific part of the horizon, often gathered over the warm air rising from an island. The flight patterns of birds were crucial. The tara, or white tern, flies out to sea to fish at dawn but always returns to land at dusk. Spotting one in the late afternoon meant land was within its flying range, a radius of about 120 miles. This holistic art, called wayfinding, wove together every strand of environmental knowledge. A navigator was never lost because he always knew his etak, or conceptual position, by tracking his progress between a succession of mental reference islands, even if those islands were far beyond sight. This precise, embodied knowledge enabled one of humanity's greatest adventures, the deliberate settlement of the Pacific. Starting from islands near New Guinea and the Philippines around 3,000 years ago, generations of voyagers sailed eastward into the unknown, discovering and populating every habitable island from Hawaii to Rapa Nui, Easter Island, to Aotearoa, New Zealand. Each successful voyage proved their celestial literacy was not abstract, it was a lifeline. They were not drifting, they were sailing with intention, guided by a map drawn in stars and felt in the rhythm of the sea, turning the vast, empty ocean into a pathway to new worlds. But the most intimate observatories were often the simplest. High in the Bighorn Mountains of Wyoming, at an elevation of nearly 10,000 feet, a circle of stones lies open to the endless sky. This is the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, a sacred site built centuries ago by the ancestors of the Plains tribes. At first glance, it appears as a humble ring of limestone rocks about 80 feet across, with a central cairn, a pile of stones, and 28 uneven spokes radiating outward like the frayed strands of a great stone spiderweb. Yet this apparent simplicity is a profound illusion. Each rock is a deliberate marker in a vast, open-air cathedral designed to track the turning of the cosmos. The central cairn is the heart of the wheel, the fixed point from which all alignments are measured. From this center, specific lines of stones or spokes point with uncanny precision to key points on the distant horizon. One prominent alignment points directly to the spot where the sun rises on the summer solstice. Another, opposite it, marks the sunset on that longest day. But the wheel's true sophistication is revealed not just by the sun, but by the stars. Other carefully placed cairns at the wheel's outer rim act as foresights. If you stand at the central cairn and look over these distant stone piles, your gaze is directed to the exact places where 3 brilliant stars first peak above the horizon just before dawn, their heliacal risings. Aldebaran, the red eye of Taurus the bull, Rigel, the blue foot of Orion, and Sirius, the brightest star of all, each had their own dedicated stone marker. These stars do not rise at the same time, of course. Their appearances are spread throughout the year, creating a celestial calendar etched in stone. The heliacal rising of Aldebaran in late spring, for instance, signaled a time of preparation and movement. For the Plains tribes, this was not abstract astronomy, it was the rhythm of life. The wheel provided the precise dates to begin the great buffalo hunts, to gather for the sun dance ceremony, and to know when to move camp to follow the seasons. It was a communal clock, its gears made of rock and its face painted with starlight. Perhaps most importantly, the medicine wheel was a living classroom. Elders would bring young people to this high, silent place. They would point to the central cairn, then to the horizon where the sun would soon break, and tell the stories of why this alignment mattered. They would name the stars as they appeared over the specific cairns, weaving lessons on navigation, timing, and ethics into the very fabric of the sky. This precise knowledge of solstices and star risings was not written down. It was passed from mind to mind, generation to generation, using the wheel as a permanent, immutable reference point. It stands as a testament to a different kind of precision, one rooted in oral tradition and a deep, sustained relationship with a specific place under the stars. In this high mountain circle, the universe was not a distant mystery to be solved, but a familiar neighbor, its schedule known and its guidance trusted for the continuity of the people. While the Pyramid of El Castillo captured the equinox sun, a far stranger structure nearby was built for a more obsessive purpose. The Caracol, named for its spiral interior staircase that coils like a snail's shell, is a radical departure from classic Mayan architecture. Its cylindrical tower, perched on 2 vast rectangular platforms, looks almost like a modern observatory, a stone telescope frozen in time. This was no temple for public ceremony, but a precision instrument for the priest astronomers, a laboratory dedicated to decoding the most dangerous wanderer in their sky, Venus. Every architectural choice served this single, urgent goal. The tower's narrow, slit-like windows are not placed for symmetry or beauty, but for a specific, calculated line of sight. The most critical ones face westward, framing the horizon where Venus, as the evening star, makes its dramatic appearances. These windows were engineered to capture the planet at its most extreme positions, the points on the horizon where it would first appear after a period of invisibility, or where it would set at the farthest north or south in its cycle. Tracking these extremes was vital, for they marked the boundaries of Venus's power, the moments when its influence was believed to be most potent for war or royal destiny. But the caracol's genius is layered. The entire building, through its placement on those broad platforms, is also aligned to other celestial events. One major axis of the lower platform points directly toward the setting sun on the spring equinox, while another aligns with the northernmost setting point of the moon. This means a single observer inside the tower could, on different nights of the year, use different apertures to monitor multiple celestial bodies. They could watch Venus slide into view through one slit, confirm the solar calendar by the equinox sunset through a doorway, and track the moon's slow 18-year cycle through another alignment. It was a multifunctional observatory, a stone computer with its programming written in angles of stone and light. Within its cool, dark interior, a priest astronomer would have charted these movements, comparing them to the sacred tables in codices like the Dresden Codex, calculating auspicious and inauspicious days for the king. The caracol stands as stark evidence that for the Maya, understanding the cosmos was not a passive act of worship, but an active, relentless science of observation, demanding architecture of uncompromising precision. The Maya tracked Venus with stone, but across the world, another tradition was calculating the cosmos with numbers. In the classical age of India, astronomers and mathematicians known as Jyotisha or Ganaka were producing works of staggering precision, texts called Siddhantas that blended profound mathematics with spiritual cosmology. These were not simple star charts, but comprehensive treatises on the entire universe, detailing planetary motions, eclipse cycles, and the very dimensions of Earth itself. The most revolutionary of these minds was Aryabhatta, who wrote his seminal work, the Aryabhatiya, in the year 499 CE when he was just 23 years old. Within its concise verses, he made assertions that would not be widely accepted in the West for over 1,000 years. He declared that the apparent rotation of the stars was an illusion caused by the Earth's own spin, stating that the sphere of the Earth, situated at the center of the cosmos, rotates on its own axis. He described this motion as causing the rising and setting of the stars, a heliocentric-like intuition within a geocentric framework. His mathematical genius was equally profound. He calculated the value of pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, as 3.1416, remarkably close to its true value, and did so using a method of infinite series. He also provided a startlingly accurate calculation for the Earth's circumference, estimating it at about 24,835 miles, a figure within 1% of the modern measurement. Aryabhatta understood eclipses not as mythical events, but as shadows cast in space, correctly explaining lunar eclipses as the Earth's shadow falling on the moon and solar eclipses as the moon obscuring the sun. A century later, the mathematician Brahmagupta would refine and advance this work in his own Siddhanta, providing even more precise rules for planetary positions and arithmetic operations, including the groundbreaking use of zero as a number with its own mathematical properties. This Indian astronomical tradition was unique in its seamless fusion. The cosmos they calculated was not a cold machine, but Leela, the divine play of the gods. The planets were deities, their motions a dance, and the mathematics that described their paths was a form of sacred language, a way to comprehend the mind of the Creator. Their precision did not diminish wonder, it deepened it, revealing a universe governed by elegant, knowable laws that were themselves an expression of the infinite. Yet the most enigmatic observatories were not built upward but scraped into the earth itself. In the bone-dry desert of southern Peru, An entire civilization left a message so vast it can only be read from the sky. The Nazca lines are a sprawling gallery of geometric shapes and giant animal figures, a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, etched into the dark desert pavement by removing the top layer of reddish pebbles to reveal the pale sand beneath. These geoglyphs are not small, they stretch for miles, some lines running arrows straight across the plains and up the sides of hills. For centuries, their purpose was a complete mystery, hidden from the very people walking among them, only revealing their forms from the vantage point of the surrounding foothills or as we see them today from the air. One compelling thread in this mystery leads directly to the stars. Many researchers have noted that several of the long, straight lines point toward significant celestial events on the horizon. Specific lines align with the spot where the sun sets on the winter solstice in June, the shortest day of the year for the southern hemisphere. Others seem to target the heliacal rising of the Pleiades star cluster, that tight grouping of stars we saw on the Nebra Sky Disc. For the Nazca people, the Pleiades held immense practical importance. Its first appearance in the pre-dawn sky in early June coincided with the beginning of the agricultural cycle and the arrival of vital water from the highlands. In this brutally arid landscape where rain might fall only once a decade, tracking this celestial signal was a matter of survival. This suggests the lines were more than just art, they were a kind of ritual landscape, a permanent ceremonial circuit. Imagine a community gathering at the tail of the giant hummingbird geoglyph as the Pleiades first glimmered above a specific line on the horizon. Priests or leaders might have walked the lines as processional pathways, physically tracing a connection between the earth and the heavens during key festivals. By walking the spider's leg or following the straight line toward the solstice sunset, they were performing a powerful act of sympathetic magic, aligning their world with the cosmic order to invoke what they needed most, water from the gods. The lines transformed the entire desert into a temple without walls, where the deities in the sky could look down and see their own forms reflected on the ground, a permanent plea for balance and life etched into the very skin of the world. The desert lines of Nazca were a prayer for water etched into the earth, but across the Pacific, a king carved his entire kingdom into a map of the cosmos. In the dense jungles of Cambodia, the temple of Angkor Wat rises like a stone mountain from the forest floor, a monument so vast it was believed to have been built by the gods themselves. Constructed in the early 12th century by King Suryavarman II, this was not merely a place of worship, it was a deliberate, breathtaking model of the Hindu universe. The entire complex is designed as a symbolic representation of Mount Meru, the mythical axis of all creation, home of the gods, surrounded by concentric mountain ranges and oceans. The towering central spire represents Meru's peak. The enclosing galleries are the mountain chains, and the massive moat, over 600 feet wide, symbolizes the cosmic ocean at the edge of the world. Every stone was laid to manifest this divine geography on Earth, making the king's capital the literal center of the cosmos. This ambition is written in its very orientation. While most temples dedicated to the god Vishnu face east toward the rising sun, Angkor Wat faces precisely west. This was a profound and deliberate choice, aligning the temple with the setting sun, a direction associated with death and the afterlife in Hindu thought. Scholars believe this westward gaze connected the temple to the king's own funerary rites, establishing his eternal legacy as a god-king united with Vishnu. But this orientation also set the stage for one of the world's most precise and spectacular solar alignments. Each year, on the morning of the spring equinox, when day and night are of equal length, an event of celestial theater unfolds. As dawn breaks, observers gathered at the western entrance witness the sun rise directly over the apex of the central tower. From that perfect vantage point, the sun appears to crown the temple's sacred peak, its light flooding the long causeway and inner sanctums in a path of gold. This was no happy accident of architecture. The builders engineered this alignment with astonishing accuracy, ensuring the sun would perform this symbolic ascent on one of the most spiritually significant days of the year. In that moment, the alignment fused multiple layers of meaning. It connected the sun god Surya with the king Suryavaman, whose name meant protected by the sun. It marked the equinox, a time of cosmic balance and renewal, and it visually enacted the king's divine ascent, his soul climbing the axis of the world to join the gods, just as the sun climbed over the stone mountain he had built. For a brief moment at dawn, myth, astronomy, and royal power became one, a convergence of heaven and earth engineered in sandstone and light. This cosmic architecture found its most organized expression in the peaks of the Andes. For the Inca, the universe was not a distant abstraction but a living, breathing system with their capital, Cuzco, as its literal heart, the navel of the world. From this sacred center, an invisible web of order extended across the empire, governing time, religion, and society itself. This was the Sec system, a breathtakingly complex arrangement of 41 imaginary lines called secs that radiated outward from the Coricancha, the temple of the sun in central Cuzco. Think of it as a spiritual and administrative map drawn not on parchment but across the entire landscape. Along each of these radiating lines were carefully placed shrines known as huacas. A huaca could be almost anything: a spring, an unusual rock formation, a hilltop, or a tomb, any natural or man-made feature believed to hold sacred power. There were over 350 of these shrines meticulously recorded, each one serving as a marker on its specific sec line. This system was the backbone of Inca civilization. It organized social duties, assigning the maintenance and worship of specific huacas to particular noble families and clans, weaving spiritual responsibility into the fabric of community. But its most ingenious function was telling time. The Sec system was in essence a massive stone calendar spread across the horizon. The Inca astronomers, known as Yanka, used the huacas as fixed sighting points against the rising and setting sun. As the sun's position shifted along the horizon throughout the year, its first light would strike different huacas on specific secs, marking the passage of days, the turning of seasons, and the all-important agricultural and ceremonial festivals. The June solstice sunrise, for instance, would align with a particular shrine on a specific line, signaling the festival of Inti Raymi, a celebration of the sun god and a plea for his return. This meant the entire valley of Cuzco, with its surrounding hills and peaks, functioned as a colossal observatory. The celestial order was mirrored perfectly in the terrestrial order. The path of the sun in the sky was tracked by its relationship to the sacred geography on the ground. In this worldview, there was no separation between astronomy and daily life. To follow the Sec system was to walk in harmony with the cosmos, to see the sun's journey reflected in the stones of your own city, and to know your place within a universe that was meticulously, beautifully arranged. These stone calendars and celestial machines were more than just tools. They were the physical anchors for a far richer reality. For every precise alignment tracked by an astronomer, there was a story told by a storyteller, a myth that gave meaning to the measurement. The stars themselves became a vast, shimmering storybook where cultures across the world wrote their deepest fears, values, and understanding of nature into the constellations. Look at the constellation we call Orion, the hunter. In Greek myth, he was a giant, boastful figure placed among the stars by Zeus, forever pursued by the scorpion, Scorpius. But travel to the ancient Maya, and those same stars formed an entirely different picture. They saw not a hunter, but a celestial monster, a great turtle, or in some interpretations, the three hearthstones of creation, central to their myth of how the cosmos was first set in order. The same pattern of lights was read in two completely different languages of imagination, each revealing what that culture held sacred or terrifying. This was not random storytelling. It was a powerful mnemonic device, a way to encode precise astronomical knowledge into unforgettable narratives that could be passed down orally for generations. The movements of these constellation characters across the sky mark the passage of time and the change of seasons with a clarity that a simple calendar could not match. Nowhere is this global connection more stunning than with the Pleiades star cluster, that tiny, misty group of stars known as the Seven Sisters. Its story appears with eerie similarity on almost every continent. In Greek mythology, they are the seven daughters of the Titan Atlas, placed in the sky to escape the relentless pursuit of the hunter Orion. For the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, they are the seven sisters being chased by the hunter in the constellation Orion, in a songline that stretches across the desert, mapping both the land and the sky. Among the Lakota of North America, the Pleiades are known as the Seven Little Girls, or sometimes the Buffalo Calf Women, whose appearance signaled important ceremonies. Why this global obsession with seven sisters? The link is almost always practical and profound. The heliacal rising of the Pleiades, its first dawn appearance, served as a universal agricultural signal. In the Mediterranean, it marked the start of the sailing season. For the Maori of New Zealand, it heralded the new year and the planting of crops. For the Japanese, it was the festival of Tanabata. The myth preserved the timing. A parent could point to the cluster and say, "When the seven sisters return to the morning sky, it is time to sow the seeds," wrapping a vital survival instruction inside a tale of sibling bonds and celestial escape. These stories did more than just record, they explained. An eclipse became a dragon or a jaguar devouring the sun, a narrative that made sense of a terrifying, unpredictable event. The Milky Way was a river of souls, a pathway of ashes, or a great serpent in the sky, giving cosmic structure to beliefs about life and death. By weaving their precise observations into myth, ancient cultures did something remarkable. They turned cold celestial mechanics into a living, breathing part of human life. The sky was not a separate realm of abstract science. It was the stage where their gods battled, their ancestors traveled, and the very rules of their world were enacted nightly overhead. The stories gave meaning to the motion, but to capture that motion required tools of elegant simplicity. Before gears and glass, the first instruments were extensions of the human body and the earth itself. The most fundamental was the gnomon, a vertical rod or pillar planted firmly in the ground. Its genius lay in its utter plainness. As the sun journeyed across the sky, the gnomon's shadow swept around its base like the hand of a colossal clock. By marking the shadow's shortest point at midday, one could find true north and south. By tracking the shadow's length from day to day, one could pinpoint the solstices, the days when the shadow was longest in winter and nearly vanished at noon in summer. This simple stick was a solar observatory in its own right, transforming the moving sun into a measurable line on the ground, a tangible record of celestial time. In ancient China, astronomers refined this into the sophisticated sundial, but the principle remained the same, using the earth itself as a dial and a shadow as the pointer. For the night sky, a different tool was needed, one capable of capturing the precise moment a star crossed the meridian, the imaginary north-south line in the sky. The ancient Egyptians developed the merkit for this exact purpose. The device consisted of two main parts, a narrow, palm-sized bar with a central notch, often made from a forked stick or metal, and a separate plumb line, a weight suspended from a string. An astronomer, known as a hour watcher, would work with a partner. One would hold the merkit up to his eye, sighting through the notch like a gun sight, aligning it with a specific bright star. His assistant would stand a short distance away, holding the plumb line perfectly vertical. By watching when the star transited or crossed the line of the string, they could determine the exact time of night and track the star's slow drift over the seasons. This was the instrument of high precision. It is almost certain that teams using merkits established the near-perfect cardinal alignments of the pyramids, stretching those sight lines across the desert with nothing but string, stars, and unwavering patience. The merkit turned the vault of heaven into a grid of measurable coordinates, but the ultimate expression of this portable precision was yet to come. Centuries later, in the Islamic Golden Age, astronomers perfected an instrument that condensed the entire cosmos into a handheld device of breathtaking beauty and function, the astrolabe. Crafted from brass, often intricately engraved, the astrolabe was a star chart, a clock, a calendar, and a calculator all in one. At its heart was a rotating web of points called a reter, which mapped the positions of the brightest stars. This turned atop a fixed plate engraved with lines for altitude and azimuth, a coordinate system for the local sky. By suspending the astrolabe from a ring and sighting a star or the sun through its alidade, a rotating sighting rule, you could measure its height above the horizon. Then, by turning the reter until the star's marker aligned with the correct line on the plate, you could solve dozens of practical problems. What time is it? When will the sun rise tomorrow? How high is that mountain? The astrolabe allowed a scholar in Baghdad, a sailor on the Mediterranean, or a farmer in Andalusia to hold a model of the universe in their palm, to perform observations and calculations that once required a fixed observatory. It represented the culmination of millennia of observation, a tool where the gnommon's shadow and the Merkit's plumb line were refined into an elegant machine of brass and intellect, proving that the quest to measure the heavens was also a journey of technological artistry. Yet the names etched into history's great observatories are almost exclusively those of men. This is the silent shadow in our story, a vast omission that obscures a profound truth. Women were not merely bystanders to the celestial dance, they were often its most intimate and essential choreographers, their contributions woven into the very fabric of ancient sky watching, though their names were rarely recorded. Consider Enheduanna, a name that echoes from the dust of 2300 BCE. She was the daughter of Sargon of Akkad, the founder of the world's first true empire, and she held the powerful title of High Priestess of the moon god Nanna in the city of Ur. Inscribed cylinder seals bear her name and title, and while we have no surviving astronomical texts in her hand, her position makes her role almost certain. As the chief administrator of the god's temple, she would have overseen the scribes who meticulously recorded celestial omens on clay tablets. She would have been the ultimate authority on interpreting the moon's phases and the starry messages for the king, her father. Enheduanna is also one of the first known authors in history, a poet who wrote hymns to the goddess Inanna, linking the divine feminine to the powers of the cosmos. She stands as a powerful symbol, a woman at the very nexus of political power, religious authority, and the emerging science of the stars. Centuries later, in the vibrant intellectual crossroad of Alexandria, a woman's voice rose to a prominence so brilliant it could not be ignored and would ultimately be met with terrifying violence. Hypatia, born around the year 350 CE, was a philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer, the head of the Neoplatonic school in a city simmering with religious and political tension. She was famed for her public lectures, drawing students from across the Mediterranean who came to learn not from a woman, but from a master thinker. Her astronomical work focused on preserving and refining the knowledge of the past. She edited and wrote commentaries on the complex works of Ptolemy and Apollonius, making their dense mathematics on planetary motion and conic sections accessible to new generations. She is credited with inventing or refining the astrolabe and a device for distilling water, tools of both celestial measurement and practical life. Hypatia embodied reason in an age of growing dogma. Her brutal murder by a Christian mob in 415 CE, a political assassination fueled by zealotry and fear of her influence, marked not just a personal tragedy but the extinguishing of a certain kind of light. Her death became a symbol of the end of the classical era's tolerance for scholarly women and for intellectual inquiry that stood outside religious orthodoxy. Beyond these rare, named figures, we must look to the quiet, daily practices where women's astronomical roles were likely fundamental. In countless agrarian societies, the responsibility for tracking time often fell to women as the primary keepers of the household and the agricultural cycle. Who would have noted the first appearance of the Pleiades at dawn if not the person planning the planting? Who would have tracked the moon's phases for seasonal rituals, fertility cycles, and community ceremonies? In many indigenous cultures, women were the ritual specialists, the healers, and the storytellers who held the oral maps of the stars. They passed down the stories of the constellations, the timing of ceremonies, and the navigational lore that guided their people. This knowledge was practical, sacred, and essential, transmitted from mother to daughter, from elder to apprentice, in an unbroken chain of celestial literacy that existed outside the official, male-dominated records. To overlook this is to misunderstand how ancient astronomy truly functioned. It was not solely the domain of kings and priests in towering observatories, but also of wise women watching the horizon from a village gate, marking star risings with a notch on a stick, or singing a child to sleep with a story about the 7 sisters fleeing across the sky. Their legacy is not carved in stone monuments, but in the perpetuation of the knowledge itself, a subtle, powerful thread in the vast tapestry of our cosmic curiosity. The legacy of these ancient watchers is a story of brilliant light and profound darkness. For every pyramid that still stands, for every star map preserved in clay, there are volumes of knowledge that vanished into the silence of history, leaving gaps in our understanding as vast as the night sky itself. The most famous symbol of this loss is the Great Library of Alexandria, a beacon of the ancient world that burned. Within its halls, scholars like Hypatia once worked, and its scrolls likely contained astronomical treatises from across the Mediterranean, Mesopotamia, and beyond. Its destruction, whether gradual or sudden, erased an incalculable portion of humanity's early scientific memory, but this was not an isolated tragedy. Knowledge was lost in countless ways, through the slow decay of papyrus and bark paper codices in humid climates, through the deliberate burning of texts during cultural conquests, and through the simple, quiet cessation of an oral tradition when the last elder who remembered the star songs passed away. When Spanish conquistadors systematically destroyed Mayan codices as works of the devil, they were not just burning books, they were erasing millennia of precise celestial observation, reducing a complex cosmology to a handful of surviving fragments like the Dresden Codex. This creates a haunting puzzle for modern researchers. We are left with the monumental stones, the silent alignments, but often without the instruction manual that explains their full purpose. We see the medicine wheel's 28 spokes, but we may never know the exact prayer spoken when Aldebaran rose. We have the Antikythera Mechanism's gears, but we lack the name of its brilliant maker. This loss forces us into a fascinating, collaborative detective story across time. Our modern scientific endeavor has become a mirror of the ancient one, a new quest for precision aimed at recovering the old. Today's tools are extensions of our senses, just as the Merkit and Gnomon were for the ancients. Light detection and ranging, or LIDAR, is a revolutionary technology that lets archaeologists see through dense jungle canopy. By flying over a forest and firing millions of laser pulses at the ground, they can strip away the vegetation digitally, revealing the human landscape beneath. In places like the jungles around Angkor or the Maya lowlands, LIDAR has unveiled vast, hidden urban networks, roadways, and water management systems, proving these were not isolated temple cities but sprawling, engineered civilizations whose layouts were likely guided by cosmic principles we are only beginning to map. This technology is like giving us the eyes of a god, to see the grand design the builders themselves could only perceive in their mind's eye. Alongside LIDAR, powerful computer simulations allow us to test hypotheses with digital precision. Researchers can input the exact geographic coordinates of a site like Stonehenge or the Chaco, then run a virtual model of the sky back thousands of years. They can watch where the sun set on the horizon in the year 1500 BCE, or track the precise path Venus took across a specific temple window. This lets us ask and answer questions the original builders knew intimately. Was this alignment intentional? Could this pattern of stones have been used to track the 18.6-year lunar cycle? The computer becomes a time machine, letting us stand beside the ancient astronomer and see what they saw, confirming alignments that were once matters of faith with the cold mathematics of celestial mechanics. This work is more than just academic recovery. It is a profound bridge across time. It connects the drive of the Mayan priest calculating Venus cycles with that of the modern astrophysicist modeling galactic rotation. Both are seeking order in the cosmos. Both are using the best tools of their age to measure, predict, and understand. When we use satellite data to find a lost ceremonial pathway that points to the solstice sunrise, we are not just discovering their past, we are completing a conversation they started. We are answering their silent, stone questions with our own light and silicon in a collaborative project that spans millennia. The ancient quest for precision in the sky has ignited our own, proving that the urge to map the heavens is a timeless thread in the human story, one that connects the star watcher on a Babylonian ziggurat with the scientist analyzing data from a space telescope, both gazing upward, united by wonder. But this incredible human story of discovery often faces a strange modern distortion. A popular narrative suggests such precision could not possibly be the work of ancient people, pointing instead to the intervention of extraterrestrial visitors. This idea, while captivating, fundamentally misreads the evidence and, more importantly, sells our ancestors profoundly short. The real story is not one of lost alien blueprints, but of relentless human curiosity passed down through generations. Consider the pyramids. We see the finished, majestic product and its scale seems impossible. But archaeologists have uncovered the workers' villages, the ramps, the trial quarries, and the engineering mistakes at earlier, less perfect pyramids. We see a clear, centuries-long evolution of technique. This was a slow, human climb up a learning curve of staggering ambition, not a sudden gift from the stars. The same is true for celestial knowledge. The Babylonian eclipse records did not appear overnight. They are the result of over 1,000 years of nightly observations, with errors slowly corrected over centuries. That is not the mark of a handed-down secret. It is the painstaking signature of human diligence. To credit aliens is to ignore the most powerful force in this entire history, the cumulative intellect of generations who looked up, wondered, and refused to stop figuring it out. It dismisses the Polynesian navigator who spent a lifetime memorizing the star paths, the Mayan priest who dedicated his life to calculating the cycles of Venus, and the unknown genius who first realized that a shadow's length could measure the year. These were not passive recipients of alien wisdom. They were active, brilliant scientists and engineers of their time. The ancient astronaut theory often asks where they got the knowledge, but the far more compelling question is how they built it piece by piece over millennia. Their tools were not magic, they were gnomons and merkits. Their laboratories were open plains and high deserts, and their data storage was human memory and marked stone. This human-centric view does not make the achievements less astonishing, it makes them more so. It means the drive to understand the cosmos, to seek order in the heavens, is an intrinsic part of what makes us human. To give the credit to extraterrestrials is to rob our own species of its greatest testament, the proof that with careful observation, relentless patience, and shared knowledge across generations, humanity is capable of deciphering the universe itself. The true wonder is not that aliens might have visited, but that they never needed to. From the silent stone circles of England to the brilliant gears of a Greek shipwreck, the story of ancient astronomy is a testament to a single, unifying human impulse. We have journeyed across continents and millennia, seeing how cultures with no contact shared a common drive to map the heavens with breathtaking accuracy. The Polynesian navigator felt the ocean swells and named the stars that led him home. The Babylonian scribe pressed his stylus into clay, hunting for patterns in eclipses. The Mayan priest calculated the dangerous dance of Venus to advise his king. the Egyptian architect angled a narrow shaft so a pharaoh's soul could join the imperishable stars. Each, in their own language and stone, asked the same profound questions of the night. They sought order, meaning, and a way to survive in a world governed by celestial cycles. This was not a primitive science, but a sophisticated dialogue with the cosmos, blending keen observation with deep spirituality. They built calendars in stone, wrote star maps in gold, and engineered entire landscapes to capture the sun's fleeting light. They did it to know when to plant, when to sail, when to worship, and ultimately, to understand their place in a vast, beautiful, and often intimidating universe. That legacy is our inheritance. The next time you step outside on a clear night, look up. Those are the same stars that guided a voyager to a new island, that told a farmer when the floods would come, that inspired a myth about 7 sisters forever fleeing across the sky. You are part of that unbroken chain of wonder. Which culture's celestial achievement left you most amazed? Was it the portable cosmos of the Nebra Sky Disc, the terrifying precision of the Mayan Venus tables, or the lonely genius of Aristarchus imagining a sun-centered universe? Share your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this journey through time and sky, subscribe for more explorations into history's greatest mysteries. The past is full of stories waiting to be told, and the next one might just change how you see the world.